a good idea, Pete. Okay, so it's 5:05, so I think we might start, Juanita, and then people can come and join as they are able. So thank you everybody for coming to this coach seminar for New South Wales croquet coaches and other interested parties. We're very pleased to have our guest tonight is Dr. Juanita Weissensteiner from the New South Wales Office of Sport. And she's going to do a presentation on player pathways and specifically the Foundation Talent Elite Mastery framework that she's been very instrumental in developing, communicating about and working on. So Juanita, I'll hand over to you and thank you very much. Let's get started.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Kate. Really great to connect with you all this afternoon. I'm going to go through a few things and hopefully there's a couple of nuggets in there. So I will be showing a few QR codes to some resources that we've got in the New South Wales Office of Sport. And at the back end, I'll talk about a up and coming webinar that you might be interested in as well. So let's get started. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I had trouble then. Okay, so I just want to take you back, I guess, to the genesis of the FTEM, what we call FTEM Athlete Development Framework. And we put it together way back in around 2012. So it's about 13 years ago when we're at the Australian Institute of Sport. Our role changed from doing national talent ID programs, and we had a really flourishing program looking after talent ID for 14 national sporting organisations. And with the change of that program, it ceased. Our role was then to educate and support sporting organisations with the best practice approach for athlete development. So to support us in doing that, we realised we needed some guidance, like a framework or a model. And what we did was we had a look, we were quite diligent looking at all the frameworks and models that were in Australia, but also globally. And based on our learnings from 25 to 30 years in the AIS and through the Talent ID program, we realised that whatever framework we put together, that Australian development framework, it needed to have these key aspects to it. So up the top there, we noticed a lot of frameworks were age prescriptive. They were specific to an age range and they were very generic as well. So we realised that we needed to have a framework that is really practical, that helps the coach, helps the athlete, helps the practitioner, that wasn't just theoretical, and sat on a page, and that it really spoke to a best practice approach at each level of athlete development. We also needed that framework because there's such a variance in age of participants and athletes. We had done some research at the AIS preceding the development of the framework, where we tracked the developmental histories of about 256 Australian Olympic and world champion athletes. And we could see even in sports that you'd think there were certain ages, it wasn't the case. There was such variance in age, and you're getting instances where athletes are dropping out of sport and coming back in. And if you think of croquet, again, it's so important that we're not prescriptive by age, but by best practice, because we have a variance of age. We also need to recognise the importance of critical foundations like physical literacy, and we recognise that the physical literacy of our youth, because of incredible research that was done at the time at Sydney Uni, was showing that that was really on the decline, and it still is on the decline. So the framework really needed to recognise that and try and bump that up. The framework also not only recognising the importance of strong foundations of physical literacy, it needed to span the 3 pillars of sport. So it's foundations and community sport, but also talent pathways, and that speaks to supporting the emerging athlete, and then high performance. So we need a framework that was whole of sport and linked and recognised all 3 and showed how they work together. You know, they complement each other, and there needs to be that operational alignment. And then lastly, we can't, as I touched on before, we need to bring it to life and make it really speak to the player in the centre, and bring it to life operationally as well. So we came up with this original FTEM framework in around 2013. So I'll just unpack it for you guys now to show the key features. So you can see at the bottom here, we've got 3 F levels. So there is a chronology that we advocated for early development, sporting skills, physical literacy. F1 is all about, and this is really speaking to younger participants, all about having a full complement of fundamental movement skills, land-based, aquatic, having that full repertoire of movement skills. F2 is then about the right fit of introductory format of sport. So obviously for a young child, you don't want to put them in a full format of soccer, you know, in the middle of a field. You're going to have the right fit of introductory program that is a fit to their developmental stage and so forth. So that's the F2. F2 is also about adult participants that are older and want to try a sport for the first time and coming into F2 as well. So what do we do there to attract older, you know, youth and adult participants to come back in, and what's the right fit of program and coaching to help build, you know, their sporting skills in that particular sport. F3 is then, once you've got those great foundations, introduction in the sport, F3 is then committing, you know, to that sport, lining up with a coach in a club, regular competitions, and so forth. And this is what we saw as a bit of a, you know, like a chronology of ideal development in the community sort of levels. What we've got also in here is we really advocate about the importance of sampling different sports before specialising in the main sport. And our rule of thumb was, you know, you specialise around the 14 to 15 years of age. And that was based on a lot of research we did with elite level athletes. A lot of our finest athletes have sampled 4 to 5 sports before they've gone into their main sport. And there's a real advantage to that because they've chosen which sports are right fit for them, but then they've got all that versatility, adaptability, all those other skills from the other sports in the physical, the technical, the tactical that they bring into their main sport as well. And play. Play is a big thing as well, not just doing structured participation in sport, but we recognise the importance of play, unstructured play and practice as well. And we recognise that if you had these 3 levels well covered, that it was going to support not only foundational development, the holistic competency of the participant and the physical literacy, and hopefully they're having fun and they're engaged, but it's going to also support their lifelong engagement in sport as well. And that's recognised by this arrow here, and you'll see with the graphics here, you know, we've got more mature people up the top there. And you'll notice here too that we've got active lifestyle and sport in this really early one. We showed here recognising the importance of having an active lifestyle and social participation as well as structured sport participation in the community levels, and that you could actually be doing both or you know, dip your toe in either. And we thought with those F levels, it will help, yeah, with the physical literacy and the lifelong engagement. What we also recognise is those are key foundations to support an emerging athlete. So if an emerging athlete has aspirations to do future high performance, if they've got these key foundations, they've got that full repertoire of fundamental movement skills and sporting skills and a good awareness of how to be an athlete and that physical literacy, it's going to stand them in really good stead as an emerging athlete, because we were finding that a lot of emerging athletes even got to a national junior level, but they had very poor physical literacy, and that was compromising their skill potential and potentially putting them at risk of injury as well. So that brings me to the talent levels. So you can see we've got 4 talent levels in the middle of the FTEM framework. And for me, they're definitely not chronological levels. They're more processes in my mind, and they're processes to really optimise the talent pipeline, your talent ID and your nurturing and your support of the emerging player. So T1 is about initial demonstration of potential. So you might see a croquet player in a competition and think they've got, great potential. But watching them in competition, it's only a snapshot of them. T2 is about verifying their holistic potential in a camp or under a probationary period, or watch them for a period of time and interacting with them to get a real sense of their holistic profile, their commitment to being an emerging athlete and going up the pathway, their readiness as well. It's really hard sometimes to ascertain by watching someone, in competition and doing that snapshot of their potential to really make a good decision about their future potential. So we recognise that really you need to do both. Initial demonstration potential, but follow it up with a verification approach. And I'll show you that. I'll unpack that a little bit later. T3, while it looks the same size there, it's a huge period of time. So T1, identify them. T2, confirm them. T3, develop them. And this is all about everything you can do to nurture that emerging player. And it could be a period of time from 1 to 2 years to 8 years or even longer, where they're working with a quality coach, they're in a quality training environment, they're going to competitions, they're going to camps, they're doing education. It's the full gamut of nurturing that emerging player. And then T4 is when they signal that they're on the cusp of readiness to go into the high performance levels, which is the E1, E2 and M. And that's a critical time too. It's a critical transition time. And it's where you might individually case manage that player. They might play second tier competitions to get them ready for the transition up, because we know that transition as a emerging player to an elite player can sometimes be tricky. So it's really an individualised case management to help them adequately transition up to the high performance levels. Now, for junior level athletes, these arrows show they sort of percolate through the T1 to T3 processes as they go up the age rungs. If you think about it, they've got to go through the selection. Hopefully they do a confirmation, and then they're in a developmental program. So in essence, youth athletes will go through this quite a few times up the age bands. And what I touched on before was, whilst it's so important to have these processes and have them really strong, because you're going to find you've got athletes that go out, that come in. You might have athletes come from another sport and come into this sport. Athletes coming from community levels and in. So the system has to be able to cater for that. It's got like a porosity to it to be able to cater for that talent coming in and out. And that is characteristic of a lot of athletes' journeys. They've come in and out and from different sports and the timeline can be so different. Like I think of Paralympic athletes, it can be really quick, this movement up through the emerging levels. And then it brings me to the high performance levels, which are our E1, E2 and M. We looked at frameworks previously and they stopped at national representation. And we thought, no, we want to go beyond that. We want to have a lot of national representatives that go on and get international success. And we need to learn about the longevity of our finest athletes as well. So we deliberately extended it where E1 is national representation, but E2 is the athlete that represents Australia and gets international podium success. So we want to differentiate and show the progression between the two. And then mastery are those players on the international stage representing Australia that have got multiple podium wins over multiple cycles. And for me, personally, and I've been really fortunate to learn from a lot of Olympic and Paralympic and world champion athletes, understanding those athletes, their psychological profiles, what was important to them, their strategies and their skills is so important to then inform everything underneath. So that's just unpacking the FTEM. One thing here is when we've done research with our high performance athletes, they don't just do their main sport. They're doing recreational sport or another sport. You think of the cricketers are playing golf. They need that balance. They need that outlet. And these little circles demonstrating the original FTEM model, the concurrent nature of different sports that you're in and how that sort of can change as well. So FTEM for us in the Office of Sport, AIS way back then, and Office of Sport now, I guess it really provided us that whole of sport framework that was inclusive of all outcomes and probably, so much emphasis there on the foundational levels and why that's so important. And we've found an incredibly useful tool for sports, for organisations to assess what they're doing at each level. What's the alignment? What's the linkage? Is there any gaps, when they're doing audits and so forth? So it's been really useful, as well as being a visual. When you relate it to a sport, it's a really powerful visual for a player to understand where they're at, their parent to understand, the coach to understand as well, and shows the step, how it's all aligned and the stepping stones for them as well. In 2014, I was really very privileged to be able to share FTEM to the International Olympic Committee, which was wonderful. They were really interested in it because it was whole of sport and it was based on best practice. So it was wonderful to feature FTEM in the consensus statement that was released in 2015. That was all about what we can do globally to better support our youth athletes. And I've had the great pleasure of working with many national sporting organisations to bring FTEM to life. One of the early ones in the middle there was Swimming Australia. And this is the Australian Swimmers Framework they put together in around 2014, and they're still utilising it. And they're reviewing it at the moment, but it has been really helpful to get everyone on the same page and understanding who's doing what and what does that look like. On the right here, working with Snow Australia, a different look and feel. They've got 7 pathway documents on their website specific to each subdiscipline that unpacks for each level what the context is for the athlete, what type of support, what fit of coaching, what fit of programs, what education, leadership and so forth. So they've done a fantastic job, Snow Australia. Internationally, Switzerland was an early adopter of FTEM and utilised FTEM, and it looks a bit different how they've depicted it, but they use it for all their Olympic and Paralympic sports, so they're heavily invested in it. In the middle, we have Japan, again, a different look and feel that speaks to their culture. I really impress on you to have a look at their website. You can actually look at it in English and it's fantastic, all the different FTEMs that they've got for all the different Olympic and Paralympic sports. So they're very invested in it too. And then on the bottom right, I had the great pleasure of helping the Gaelic Games people over in Ireland to put together for Gaelic football what their FTEM looks like as well. Now in New South Wales, in my role, I lead the Future Champions strategy, released in the end of 2019. Quite a comprehensive strategy, but it all speaks to what we can do better to support our emerging athletes in New South Wales. Central to, I guess, facilitating that strategy is our FTEM New South Wales. So I took the liberty of revisiting the original FTEM, making it speak to New South Wales. And you can see here, I'm a huge fan of Jess Fox and Madison D. Rosario. And I thought, whatever framework I put in, I'm going to put in these two incredible ladies because they're phenomenal role models. So I've got them there, but you'll see there's quite a bit more imagery, and up here there's a bit more differentiation. So I really fleshed out what community sport offerings look like. So not just active lifestyle and sport, really fleshed out the different types of community sport programs. So casual, social, modified and traditional sport formats, and hopefully represented with the imagery, you know, the lifespan, the different life stages in the FTEM as well. And you'll notice there's a bit more commentary. I found on reflection from the original AIS FTEM that we need to be clearer as to what is the goal and intent of each level. So I took that opportunity to put it into FTEM New South Wales. So I use this with state sporting organisations to educate on a best practice approach and whole of sport framework. And as I touched on before, it's been really helpful for education, but as a mapping tool, an audit tool, review tool as well. So you might ask, what does that mean for me, FTEM, in terms of coaching? Well, how I see it is that if a coach has a better understanding of where their player is in terms of their holistic development and where they are in their sporting journey and their competencies, that will inform the right fit of your coaching focus and delivery to make sure you've got true impact. So it's about understanding that player, that athlete right in front of you and understanding where they are on the journey, understanding too what their motivations are. Their motivation in the community level might be to play recreational croquet, which is fantastic. That's a wonderful outcome. So it's important to understand that and know what the programs, the continuity of that as they go up to youth and adult and senior, what offerings they've got there to retain them in the sport. But it also can be if an athlete, a player, croquet player, has future aspirations for high performance, then you can see what the steps are, the processes are to support them on that journey. So to support a coach's understanding of FTEM and how it relates to them, we've put together 2 FTEM New South Wales resources, one for the foundational levels and one for the talent levels. And they are quite generic. They talk about the foundational level of the participant and then the fit of the coaching, but very high level and very sort of generic. And I'll show you one of them here, and you can access them on our website. So this is the talent levels one. And you can see here, if I go through, it explains what the talent levels, why they're, sorry, I went through quickly, why the talent levels are so important, the key features of the talent levels, the talent pipeline, which I'll talk about in a little bit, what the talent levels are not. That's based on that research I was talking about earlier. And then for each of the talent levels, we give a description of the level and then a checklist for coaches and instructors. So this is something you can make specific to croquet. Absolutely. So it looks a bit like this. So unpacking what the profile looks like for the player, and the context and what the goal is for that level, the governance, the support partners, and then the context for the emerging player. And then it goes into the role of the coach at that level, and then what are the skills and strategies and the attributes of the coach, what's their level of understanding, and what are they involved in that level. So we've got there, as I said, very generic, but not a bad sort of checklist, and it goes through all the levels there. So I'll go back to my talk. That's over to you, Kate.
Unmute myself. Thank you very much, Juanita. So I think, as Juanita's talked about, there's quite a lot to this structure, but there's also flexibility. It's a structure that has been used before. It was used for the PEP program. It's something I know Rosie and the state coaches have an awareness of, but I think we haven't generally gone into a lot of detail with player pathways in my experience. So what I wanted to do, and you can see I've just slavishly copied the Gaelic Games framework, and I wanted to look at how our sport was playing out and where people were at and where we need, what our role as coaches would be along the way, and to really recognise the prominence of our clubs. Most of our recruitment and our coaching and our encouragement of people into competitions will often be at the club level. And different clubs obviously have different approaches and different levels of, different demographics of player. So that's why I wanted to make it the club to be quite central, and for that to be a really significant and useful place to stay, as you've said, that if what you want to achieve is an active lifestyle, social interaction, ongoing movement through later parts of your life, that's a really great outcome for us and for the community. And I think a lot of clubs are doing that quite well, but I think we can always improve the way how we help coaches to work with players as they come in and as they work out what it is they want to get out of this sport. I think the talent pathway is probably the area that I want us to have a look at what we're doing and how we need to do it. I think that there's been some really good incentives provided by the state selectors and by the state coaches in terms of identifying people, usually quite specifically for our gold medal and for our national competitions. So, there's a kind of process to identify people who are going to be suitable for that level. And I think the selectors have recognised that we're probably not getting the next layer of people through. We're not finding the way that we're finding people is somewhat serendipitous, and it can work well in some years and not well in others. And so we want to get a greater number of people who help participate along that journey to improve the way they play, to make them competition ready. And there's quite a lot that we can do in that space, and we just have to work out how we do it and when we do it. I don't feel like we have to kind of, this is not all magic. It's not all going to happen quickly, and we have to work out what will be beneficial for our coaches from this framework. And one of my questions, I guess, is around what is that talent level? Is that competitive club players? Is it people who are entering state competitions? Is it people who, you know, have come from another sport and are coming up quickly and really need some support to work out how they can max their what they can achieve? So there's I think some questions about how do we find people, and then how do we work with them? Given we're a volunteer sport, we don't have paid coaches. So we've got to be realistic about what it is we're going to be able to achieve, and then perhaps dream a little bit about what we might achieve if we had some more coaching support, if we were able to increase the number of coaches who are confident to work at the talent level. So I think it brings up some issues that I think we can think about, and I'll be really interested in other people's comments on this. So player pathways, as I've said on the back of this document, are part of our strategic plan. They're part of the national strategic plan. I think we're probably, you know, we say we've got player pathways, but I think we're a little bit, you know, we've still got a ways to go in terms of how we actually flesh them out. But they're certainly aspirational. And I've talked about the club is core, that the pathways, the players need to be able to see themselves in it. So that's one of the reasons, as you've said, to kind of have a visual. The coaches also need to be equipped and understand and look at what it is where are they contributing as a coach, because we need coaches all along the pathway. And, you know, we don't need all amazing coaches. We need a whole range of coaches that will be able to work along the pathway. And we want to ensure that the program is inclusive, that we're not leaving people out, that we're not considering those people who have some disabilities or other constraints. And also, I think it's really important to see it as it's a sport for life. Like, it's not something you come in here, do really well, take off with some medals and then retire. I mean, that's kind of not what croquet is, in fact, because you're not going to make any money out of it. But it's certainly, we can enter at any age, and that's always a challenge, but we can also keep playing croquet for a lot of years and get a lot of enjoyment out of it at all those levels. So, and then I've just talked a little bit about, currently we've got, there's the Croquet Academy at the national level, which is just in the process of being kind of reinvigorated. Croquet New South Wales has a really good number of coaches, people who've put their hand up to train and are working really hard across the state. And we've also got a lot of clubs that are very supportive. We have our hubs that were set up a few years ago, which have really invigorated training and coaching programs. We're setting up development squads now so that they will be situated around the states and giving people a goal and a place that they can go to find that, to take that talent pathway step. We've obviously got our clubs as the stepping stone and the recruiters, and we have coaches who are really, we can't do it without them. So that's the general picture, but I am interested in how people, if the framework is helpful for people, if there's things about it that they would like to question, or if there are some areas that they think we really need to work on. I think they're all really, really relevant comments. So I might encourage people to put some questions in the chat line. And I know you've got some more that you want to cover, Juanita.
Yeah,
do we want to do any comments yet, or should we finish your presentation and then ask for comments?
Whatever you think, Kate, no worries.
Has anybody got any comments or questions? And does the framework speak to people? Is it helpful? Anyway, I'll leave you to sit with that and have.
Can I say something?
Yes, you can, Alex, please.
Looking at the original FTEM, which is so clearly put out in what we've just seen from Juanita, I found it very, I think, quite linearly And I think it is, I broke up the FTEMs, and I decided in my own mind what skills and attributes were shown by the foundation players. When they're talented, they can do this, and elite players are able to do these additional things. And then along with the skills for each level, I had another column with club, interclub, and state national competitions that they would be expected to enter into at that stage in order to play better players and develop. I think that makes it very easy for coaches to see what category a player falls into. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. I think yes. Look, I think you've done a wonderful job on this, Kate, and I think it does. To your point, Alex, a lot of people think when you look at the FTEM, it is linear, and in essence, it's not. But having how you've got it and having the club in the centre, and the fact the bubbles are all connected, you know, that's showing the connection. It shows that it's not non-linear. It's not linear, which is fantastic. I think it's so lovely, and with the imagery as well. And I guess to your point, Alex, what you can do, this is your front of house. You can then link like Snow Australia's done, and you can flesh out what the profile you're looking for in the player, what you're trying to nurture in the community, the talent, elite, and the high performance. And I love to do that. It's sort of I call it a 3DAD sort of approach, three-dimensional athlete development program. So you sort of flesh out the profile of the player and what the immediate support, what the competitions, the camps, the support from different people, the coaches, and then you have a sort of a system level around it as well. And I think that's how you can really bring it to life and operationalize it. And it might be more a back of house sort of thing, or you show some of that visuals in terms of the competencies of the players when you need to. Yeah.
And I think that's certainly some work that Alex has done that we still have, and people can we can make that available, and it's certainly been informing what I've been working on. I think it will be really useful for us to look at that talent pathway in particular, as well as the foundation one, because as you say, the lines are not clear. It's not a kind of I've suddenly left the club world and I'm suddenly in this other zone, because you will always stay in your club, or most people will, and they will come back to the club, or they'll cycle back. So I think just working out, and I'm interested, you said the T3 is kind of often the big stage in that development, and I think just for us to work out what it is that we're expecting of people through that talent pathway, I was almost going to divide it into two, like having a T1 and T2 kind of phase, and then a T3 and T4 in terms of how we let the coaches know and say to the players, look, here's some guidance about what kind of skills, what kind of tournaments you should be entering, and what kind of confidence and in terms of your competition, your head and ability to manage competition. So all of those things are really important to let people know approximately where you should be. Yeah, and it's always a lot of different people will have different skills in different boxes, but in the end it's not critical, but we need to sort of have something that's a reasonable match.
Absolutely, Kate. And I think of Switzerland and the work they've done. They've developed these matrices, so it's just a one-pager, and it has the levels, and then it fleshes out the competencies, the fitter competition, the fitter support, and does it just on a one-pager, and that could be a really great fit for what you're after and to complement this. But I love the centrality of the club, because that's exactly what the Gaelic sports recognised in Ireland, just how critical the club is to the hub for everything, every outcome. So I think it's lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No worries. Do you want me?
Okay.
I'll continue
Yes.
on. Yeah.
Yes.
But
Let's
quite
keep going.
exciting with your framework, and I understand it's the first in Australia, and if not internationally as well.
It's
Which
the
is
first one we've
exciting.
done It's the first one we've done a picture of, I think, but
Yeah.
I think it's been
That's great.
applied. Yeah.
You've done well.
By others. Yeah.
Yeah, you've done well. And just to show, that blend here, that's to show that, in this instance where there is that strong connection, you've got your high performance players coming back into the club, the same here with your emerging players, that's represented by those blends of the circles, which is a real advantage of how you depicted it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to unpack and get you thinking about how you can operationalize your talent levels.
Right.
So I'm going to give you a few tips and a few things just to stimulate a bit of thought, a bit of brainstorming. Think about what you're doing now, what you could be doing. Don't want to overhaul everything. It could be you're doing some really great things, a couple of tweaks here and there. And before I do that, I just want to unpack. Well, there's the visual of the talent pathways. I think I've addressed that enough, but you can see, like you were saying, Kate, having T1 and T2 together is sometimes a good strategy, because this is what we advocate. You don't make the snapshot selection. You get to know the player and understand their holistic profile, their readiness, the commitment, their coachability, before you then put them into a dedicated talent development program where there's more resources, more access to services, coaching, events, and so forth, and T4. So that's all I wanted to sort of address with that slide. Now, when I work with any sporting organisation with their talent strategy, we have to have an eye on the future. So we need to think about the level of player profile at the international level if we want to nurture players here and now for the future to that level. So I use like a top-down approach that I developed at the AIS. So I always start with the future in mind, and I think of the high performance outcomes and what's that elite profile look like. And then I utilise it and I bring it back down, and it informs how you're identifying and confirming a player, their holistic profile, and then how you're developing and how you're transitioning. So I always take a top down and start with the high performance level first and understanding that profile. So I did a bit of research, and I was very impressed with these brothers, the Fletcher brothers. And I read about Robert Fletcher, and I think he got a world championship, and he would have been, in his 20s, like quite young. And here he is with his brothers. So I wanted you guys to think just a bit of an activity, for a couple of minutes or so. Think about the Fletcher brothers or other high-performing croquet players. So they've represented Australia. They've gone on to get a high world ranking. I think Robert's pretty high at the moment, from what I understand. So I just want you to take a moment to think about what skills and characteristics are key for a player like Robert to get where he got to. So you can put them in the chat if you like.
Sure. They're very young there, Juanita.
Yes.
They've lost fat now. So
I know. I think he's in his 30s now, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's in the Sunshine Coast. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, in the US a little bit at the moment.
Is he?
Too.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. I'd love to know their family history. Amazing. So just have a think about, or even you can tell me over the chat if you like.
Yeah, one of the things I was thinking that I often talk to people about with Robert Fletcher is that the care he takes with his simple shots is the same as the care he takes with his hard shots.
Yes.
It's a very consistent approach, but more than consistent. It's also very, he doesn't take any shot for granted. And I think that's a really helpful thing when you're thinking about what do you need to be to get to that level. And a lot of people say consistency is a really important part, one of the really important traits.
Absolutely. And the technique and the consistency of the technique, and because I understand some games can go for hours. Is that right? It can go for a long time. So with fatigue
there are different
and pressure
forms. It's like Test cricket versus one day. Just it varies.
Yeah.
But that's right. It's a long time, and mentally can be quite challenging.
Absolutely. And in the environmental conditions, they'd vary too. And the lay, I was thinking, it got me thinking. I was fascinated. I was watching a few videos. So is there anyone else that would like to share anything they think's important?
I think Rosie's made a comment. Oh, sorry, go on. Who's that? Alex.
It's Alex. I can't find out. I can't do chat with a mouse. I think it's really important, and with the Fletcher brothers, you could easily have added Edward Wilson. It is incredibly important to share your enthusiasm with a playing buddy or multiple playing buddies, because you get disheartened, and if you've got the people around you doing really well as a tight group, you improve. I would have given up croquet after 9 months had a man called David Begg not constantly rung me and said, "Come on, I'll meet you at 7 at the Club of Lords." So essential to have people to play with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he had a real advantage, Robert, with his brothers, and I think obviously parents played too.
No. They went into town. They were homeschooled, and they went into their local town, which was Lismore in Victoria, to look at lawn bowling, to do lawn bowling. And as they were walking to the bowling club, they looked over and saw people playing croquet, and they decided that was far more interesting than bowls.
That's awesome. That's a great story.
And Rosie's made the comment that she thinks Robert Fletcher has actually innovated to improve the game.
Has he? In what way?
Do you want to say anything, Rosie?
Type of shots or?
Maybe she's
a lot. If you consider that the first time he was the world champion in AC was when he was 19 years old, he's now 32. He worldwide is respected as he's up there in the world of croquet, probably in the top 3 best players they've ever been. And the sensation is that if he continues in the next 10 years, he'll easily take that title. Innovation in the sense that if you talk to the savants in our game, for want of a better term, they perceive the way he addresses it mathematically and tactically, the way he assesses an opponent. It's a whole other level. It's I'm trying to think in equivalent sport, but I mean, golfers are probably a little less consistent than Robbie is, and he's certainly not affected overly by emotion and a whole bunch of other things. So, I mean, he's just the epitome, and we're very, very lucky here. We've got massive amount of stats. We've got massive programs that he's been involved in since he was 19, where he was being coached by high performance managers and other very elite players. And it's definitely the case in Australia that if you want to develop an elite player, you need to have, because of the nature of the game, because of the some of the processes involved in the game, even in golf croquet, you actually need somebody who can see it the way you see it, as opposed to just looking at a good player. We can all pick out a reasonably good player, but to get that player to be able to win a world championship is a whole other life experience. And the way he looks at the game, if you sit down and talk to him, is nothing like the way a normal player does. But at the same time, he's super prepared to share that, and we have no problem accessing that when we need it.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wonderful to hear. So he might be really helpful when you want to consolidate the high performance profile. And so this is a profile that I found, what I've got here is quite consistent across many, many sports. And what you guys shared was developmental background so important, having the mentor and the practice partners and the accessibility, but it's also the physicality. So looking at the sport, a lot of balance and coordination and control, the physiological capacity, being out there for how many hours, there's an endurance with that, a fitness with that as well, and recovery. Sport-specific skills, this is definitely such a skill-based sport. And when I break that down, it's what you spoke about, Rosemary. It's anticipating, it's doing the homework about your opponents, what tactics you're going to make, the decision making, and then that wonderful technical execution, and doing that consistently under pressure, under fatigue, under different conditions as well. But it's also about knowing, having good knowledge of what it takes to be a good player. So while you're out there for 2 or 3 hours, you've got to know about good nutrition to keep the fuel up. You've got to know about good hydration, being skin smart, all those injury prevention, warm up, really important. And then probably my favourite part is the psychological skills and attributes that you spoke about with Robert. And that's really multidimensional in itself. So it's all about good self-regulation, good control, like you said, confidence. There's so much to the psychological skills and attributes. And a lot of our finest athletes actually attribute the psychological skills and attributes to how they got to where they got to. They actually recognise them more highly than the technical and the physical. So my takeaway is you've already started working on that profile and consolidating it, and that's going to be really useful for your communications and what you're aspiring towards. And as we touched on, it's multidimensional, and these are all integrated. It's an integrated sort of profile. So my next self-reflection is if we're aiming for that holistic profile, so what it takes to win, and the AIS coins it, how are you identifying emerging players' future high performance potential? So they're a few years off potentially. So how are you identifying those attributes and skills, a bit like Robert, but in the early sort of stages? So my question is, how do you select players? So have a think about that. Do you consider the player's holistic potential, not just their ranking, particularly younger players that probably have a bit of room to move in terms of their skill, their cognitive development, their physical development, their technical development, and giving maybe younger players that have got semblance of that profile a bit of affordance, knowing that if you get that right, they're going to go up the rankings. And do you use a dedicated confirmation strategy to verify selection decisions? So commonly a lot of sports pick a player watching them in competition. But as I touched on before, if you're going to put lots of resources into them in the T3, the development, you want to know, are they committed? Are they ready? Are they coachable? Is really, really important. And that's where the confirmation strategy is helpful. So it could be getting athletes you've identified in a competition, key competitions that you've recognised, get them in for a camp and put them in and observe them in a camp or over a probationary period to confirm their character, their readiness and so forth. It's really quite a powerful way to do it. And then with your selection processes, is it a formalised process and is it well communicated? So to the public, to players that want to be selected, do they understand what profile, and skills and attributes they need? What's the process going through initial demonstration potential and then confirmation? Yeah, so just things to consider with your selection, your T1 and your T2 in your FTEM.
Mm-hmm.
And what could be handy with many sports, and I think Netball Australia is one of the first ones I worked with, we put together to get everyone on the same page. So if you've got recruiters looking at players or you've got coaches looking at players, you can put together what we call a coach's eye sort of tool. And you can make it, we've got a template like this, you can make it specific to the profile of the croquet player. What key things are you looking for, in competition, but in that confirmation process? And it's a good way, if you workshop this with coaches, really experienced coaches and players, it'd be great to get Robert in. And then you can consolidate this and everyone's on the same page, the recruiters, the coaches. This is what we're looking for, this type of emerging player. And we're looking at them holistically, and you can use it as a tool, to assess the player periodically, to make a determination, with that final selection. But it really does help get everyone on the same page. I've used this with New South Wales Institute of Sport when we did a talent ID program as well, and it was really, really quite useful. So you can make it specific to croquet. It's really handy. Then in terms of your T3 and the development of the emerging player, are you nurturing their holistic profile? So again, I'm going back to that holistic profile that we know is absolutely key. So when you're coaching, are you integrating and helping to express and facilitate a lot of these areas of the player profile? And so some key tips could be in terms of your practice, and training, where you could integrate the psychological skills that I think Robert has implicitly. He's got it, in terms of his self-regulation, his self-reflection and so forth. You can integrate and promote these psychological skills with your emerging players. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute, a couple of templates. So you can set goals, sessional goals. You can help with their self-reflection. You can help with their visualization. I'm sure Robert probably does visualization to get prepared for a major event or to help with a technical issue, and positive self-talk. So things that you as a coach can start to implement and facilitate with the player. And also then in your training, integrate all the skills. Make sure that it's very competitive, like that it's including, the anticipatory, the decision making, the tactical and the technical. A lot of sports like netball, they train 150% in training so that it's easier, when they're competing. So just to integrate all the skills, just like it would be in competition. And then I would ensure lots of variability in your training. So I'm thinking, different conditions, different shots, really pushing that whole challenging your shot making, really promoting that variability. I worked with Golf Australia many, many years ago, and you see so many golfers just practice the same shot on the same, lay of the grass and the same distance, and that's not like that in competition. You've got to be able to cope with variability. So that's really important. And practice under realistic scenarios and simulations. So that competitive like pressure, the same duration is really important as well. Competition's a real learning opportunity for emerging players. So promote it as that, for them to learn, self-reflect and grow with learning. And then put into practice supportive habits. So getting them to understand about injury prevention, adequate warm-ups, having snacks for fueling, having a good hydration and doing that at the right time, before, during and after. Rest and recovery sort of modes, being skin smart, all really important things, I think, in your sport. As I touched on with the psychological skills, this is something you can absolutely help develop in your players. And we've got quite a lot of resources on our website. We've got 20 resources that you can download that were developed by a sports psychologist, Fiona McCarthy, and they're punchy and they're practical, and coaches, I'm getting really good feedback from athletes and coaches, are loving it and really helping with those psychological skills and strategies. So as I touched on, what you can do simply is before a training session or before a competition or before a camp, you can use a template that's featured in those resources to set process goals for that event. You know, what are they going to work on physically, mentally, technically, tactically? What's the outcome goal for that session? And what have they done to prepare for this session? And then the second part of this, and Fiona McCarthy, the sports site, put this together, what's the self-reflection, the evaluation afterwards? How did you go with those process goals? Did you meet your outcome goal? And then importantly, what did you learn from it? And what gaps have you recognised? And what solutions you're going to come up with to address those gaps for next time, you know, to help with your training and so forth. So you can simply do this with your player beforehand, and then afterwards you can use that second part of that last template just to self-reflect and evaluate. But I like to use this Gibbs reflective cycle, and you can download this and get your player to explain what was the event, how did they feel before the event, did they feel ready psychologically, were they in the zone, did they feel underprepared, did they feel, you know, there could be different things there. Step 3, importantly, what worked well, what did they do well, but then what didn't work so well. And then step 4 is what did they learn, what are some potential solutions, and what's their action plan for next time. Now, this is a thing you can do with your players. Initially, it's a bit clunky in getting them to do it, but they'll get to a point where if they do it over and over again, it becomes second nature, it becomes habit. And our elite athletes do this at subconscious level. They're always automatically doing it. If you think of the great high jumper Nicola Oschlagers that got the gold medal at the World Championships, she's always processing and self-reflecting in her journal. They all do it. Another thing to think about is, are you using player training plans, you know, the periodization, working out what you're doing for the year, the season, breaking it up, when the competitions are, when travel is. You know, it's a really good, very, very good tool to do with your player to work out what it's going to look like. And then you can also do an individual athlete development plan as well for your emerging players. And a lot of sports use this really effectively. So, for instance, you might identify a couple of gaps in that previous exercise, and you want them to focus and put a plan together to really help their development. So you can actually go to our website, and we've got a template here, an individual athlete development plan, and I'm only really speaking to the T3, T4 level athletes, because it takes a bit of work with the player and the coach, but it's really helpful to get the player and the coach on the same page, and to have a plan that is holistic to nurture the holistic profile. You've got the competition events in there as well, and then we've broken it down again, you know, the different aspects of the profile. What are you going to work on? Who's going to help you? When are you going to do it by? And it's a really great committed sort of plan, and get everyone on the same page, and really, really helpful, a very helpful tool to case manage that player effectively. Really important if you need to bring in service providers to support, they're on the plan as well. So everyone's got a shared plan for that player. Now, this is just another thing is a checklist you can look at on our website. Again, these are only suggestions. I don't want it to be too onerous, but have a look at it. You can see here we've got the player profile in the middle, and then we've got what are the key things to facilitate that emerging player. So it's all about, you know, the leadership and the programs and so forth, accessibility. But it's also about the coach. So while we talk about how important a player talent is, just as important, I think, is the coach talent and the fit of coaching. So we've got here a list of things that we think is absolutely important to really optimise coaching for the emerging player. So they've got to have a real good handle on not just the technical and the tactical, but they've got to also help with the case management of the player, set the plans, adapt. Really important for coaches to adapt a plan as well when appropriate. So we've just got some really good tips here, the daily training environment, the culture and everything as well. What the key characteristics are of the training environment, the importance of competition and camps, and then your service support as well. So it's just a handy sort of checklist just to stimulate some thought. Now, I wanted to end off just saying I've thrown a few things at you to percolate and think about and that you'd make specific to croquet. As coaches, it's really important to, you guys are absolutely key to any athlete development sort of framework and bringing it to fruition. You guys are the key deliverers and you're on at the coalface, and it's really important to keep investing in your own learning and development is really important. So I wanted to just share with the Office of Sport, if you go to that QR code, you can access our web pages within the Office of Sport website, and we've got one dedicated to coaches here. And if I click onto that, you'll see a lot of the templates that I showed today is there. There's even an athlete profiling template to really consolidate that exercise we did earlier and the coach's eye tool, and also a talent selection confirmation template. But if we go to here, I wanted to show you the Pathway Coaches webinars. My colleague Simon Winarski runs these, and there's fantastic number of webinars here for coaches to have a look at. All industry experts in here, so I'm sure you'll get something out of that.
Thank you very much, Juanita.
Oh, I'm nearly done. Sorry,
you're
Kate.
nearly done.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Sorry. I've got 2 slides. So we've got a webinar coming up on nutrition. So if you're interested, please let Kate and Rosemary know, and we'll send the link to you. And then the last thing I'll finish off on is I was really fortunate to work with the AIS and Sport Integrity Australia, and we put together a coaching course for young athletes, but I think it's just as pertinent for older athletes as well. To access it, you need to go to the Sport Integrity Australia Learning Hub, and you'll be able to access it. You've got to sign up for it, but you'll be able to access lots of fantastic resources that Sport Integrity Australia's got. And that's it, Kate.
That's brilliant, Juanita. Thank you so much. I think we'll I won't take questions at the moment. There's a few comments on our demographic and older athletes, but I think there's a lot of food for thought, and we can do some follow-up work, particularly in relation to people running development squads, because I think there's quite a bit of material there that people can think about what they want to use and how they might use it. But I really appreciate your time, and if everybody can give a virtual clap for Juanita. Thank you very much for
Thank you
for your time. And as I've said, the recording will be available, and the slide presentation Juanita's happy for us to have. Most of the material will be on the Office of Sport website. That's got, as you've showed us, a lot of resources. So I encourage people to follow that up. So that's all for tonight. Thank you so much, and we'll see you at the next seminar. Is on just a bit of a follow-up from our PACE coaching programs that we've been running, mostly foundation level golf croquet coaching. So we'll have a session on that I think it's Monday week, but I'll have to double check. It's on the website. So please, if you're interested in that, we'd love to have you there. Okay.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Kate.
Pleasure.
It was
Lovely
a pleasure.
to have you.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you. I
Thank
love
you.
your sport.
Yeah, well, we'll have to get you out there at Maruya, won't we? Or Nowra.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be fantastic.
Doug will take you to Nowra. They've got 4 beautiful lawns there. It's a beautiful
Beautiful.
venue, so it's quite new. So, yeah. No, that was great, Juanita, and I think a lot for us to follow up on. And I think that I think for me, there's a lot of just helping the athletes and the coaches to kind of look at where they're heading. And I like your notion of let's look at the best, what have they got, and reflect on that, and then kind of say, okay, how are you moving in that direction? How can you do that? I think that's great. Yeah, like
awesome.
Thanks very much,
Okay.
Juanita, for
It's
your
a pleasure,
time and
Doug.
very informative. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Doug.
Hooroo.
Thanks, Peter.
All right.
See you. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.